Namacharya Shri Rastafari Praise of the Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Guru Bhakti Shri Radha Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Balaj Bhumi Shri Damdam Ki Navgit Mayapur Dham Ki Vishwam Chitra Shri Dham Ki Gonga Mai Ki Ganga Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Dasi Maharani Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi All glories to some glories, all glories to some glories, all glories, let us finish Shri Gram, all glories to Shri Prabhupada. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama. So it's really nice to be back in Singapore again. I hope you can all understand me with my funny accent. I'll try to speak slowly. Sometimes I get a little bit excited when I start very quickly. So folks can understand it. It's always nice to be here. It's wonderful also to, on the way back to Australia from India to spend a bit of time here. I've been very lucky to spend 4 days now in Home. Wonderful. Beautiful family. Very nice home. Peaceful. Clean too, so very nice. It's always for a Vaishnava, or for devotees of Krishna, one of the important qualities is and actually we see this is described in the 18th chapter, is Samathamata Kosacha, Chantira Aljabrevasha, Gyana must become, Brahma Kama Subhava. Can you turn the treble up on this a little bit? It's very bassy. Is that possible? Yeah, okay, that's a little bit better. Yeah, so Krishna describes in the 18th chapter here, he says, peacefulness, self-control, austerity. We don't need the echo though. Austerity, purity, honesty, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which a Brahmana works. So there's, especially in Kali Yuga, there are 2 qualities that are the most prominent or the most necessary and that you'll find in Brahmanas are purity and honesty. The other qualities don't exist so much because of very, very difficult age we live in. And this is one of the things that I really appreciate about Singapore, is it's clean. Maybe a lot of other things going on here, but it is clean. Even the garbage trucks don't smell. Yeah? Like in Australia, you know when the garbage trucks come because you can smell it. In India, it's like, oh my God, all the odors are so bad. But it's nice. They have some good material standards here. Of course, they probably don't have much spiritual understanding, but that's quite normal in modern society, where governments don't really understand what is the goal of life. Even we have someone in India who's somewhat of a religionist, but he still doesn't really understand the goal of life. Only a devotee of Krishna can actually understand the goal of life, and therefore know what to do about it. And this is the topic, basically, of the 9th chapter. Does anyone know what the title of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is?
Most confidential.
The most confidential knowledge, right. And it's not your Wi-Fi password. That's not the most confidential knowledge, or your TikTok password or something like that. Some people probably think that's the most confidential knowledge they've got, is their social media passwords. But actually no. What is the most confidential knowledge? It's knowledge of who I am. It's like when Sanatana Goswami, when he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he explained to Lord Chaitanya, he says, everyone says I'm a great pundit, but I don't even understand the very basic question. Kayami, who am I? Tapatraya, why am I suffering these burning threefold miseries? I don't understand. So obviously he understood this, but he's pointing out for all of us that these are the basic understandings. This is fundamental knowledge to understand who you are. And this is the point that Krishna's getting here to this chapter. I'm just going to push it ahead. So I have some notes here. So I've got so I can go straight ahead, I'll go across this way. There's 9 points I wanted to cover here, which they're kind of like themes, if you like, that come out from the 9th chapter. And we see right in the beginning, Krishna starts talking about the glory of this knowledge that he's about to reveal, this spiritual, or the knowledge of bhakti, which is about to give. And the second verse, where he says, Raja Vidya Raja Puya, Pavitramidam Pratyakshadadamam Susukam Karmavya. He says, what I'm going to declare to you is the king of knowledge, the king of education, is the most secret of all secrets. And then he explains to Arjuna, because you're not envious of me. He's telling you what the qualification is to understand this knowledge. If we're envious of God, then we'll never understand that. Why? Because we want to be God. It's like, why has he got all the money? Why has he got all the beauty? Why has he got all the pretty girls? All these types of things that go through a person's mind when they're not a devotee of Krishna. And they don't really understand God's position. And they have this aspiration to be God themselves. But if we understand, and this is why Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, these books, they're so important to us, because they help us to understand who we are. This is the first point of knowledge, is to understand. Just like we see, what's the first thing that Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita? Essentially, the first chapter is just an introduction, it's all setting this up. But the first instructions that Krishna is giving to Arjuna is, you're not the body. Because everything we're doing in this life is based around this avidya. You know what vidya means? Knowledge means knowledge, it means real knowledge. And avidya is the opposite, it means without knowledge, or ignorance. And we find that in this material world, essentially, everyone is in ignorance. They're thinking that I am this body, and we were talking about this today, how we think we're identified in terms of, I think I'm a man, I think I'm a woman, I think I'm a cat, I think I'm a dog, I'm an Australian, I'm a Singaporean, I'm Indian. Well, none of these things. Because you only have that identification as long as you have this body. But the body changes, that changes. It's just like, you get into a Toyota car and you start to think I'm a Toyota. And then you get into a Porsche and you think I'm a Porsche. I mean, everyone thinks that's silly, yeah? Because it's just a machine. But what does Krishna say in the 14th chapter about the body? Yantra rudrani maya. It's yantra. Yantra means machine. The body is also a machine. Much more sophisticated than a car, but it's still just a machine. It's just like, if you look at something like a bicycle, for instance, there's a few bicycles here. So a bicycle is a machine, okay? It's quite clever. It's actually, if you understand how a bicycle works, it's quite clever. What is it that keeps the bicycle upright? Huh?
Speed. Balance?
No. What is it that keeps the bicycle upright?
Constant motion.
The spinning wheels. They have a gyroscopic function. It's like you take a gyroscope and spin it up. You can hold on your finger like that, with the axle like that, and the gyroscope's like that spinning. Yeah? Even though it's just a tip on your finger, and there's all this weight. But because of the force of the gyroscope, it keeps it sitting like that. Incredible. Krishna's creation is incredible. But it's very simple. But then if you look at something like, some of these fancy planes they have these days, these A380s and things like, much more complicated. So much more complicated. But they have the same as like, if most people think that when a plane, what causes the plane to fly is because the wind goes and pushes down from its wings. It's not actually what holds the plane up. The way that the upper half of the wing, that's the important part, the way that's designed, it creates suction on the upper half of the wing, which gives it lift. It causes the plane to basically to suck upwards. So Krishna's creation is quite extraordinary. And similarly, you can see there's the difference between, like I was just looking at your bike that was just there before, yeah? I was looking at the bell, and how simple the bell mechanism is today compared to what it was like when I was a child, it had all these moving parts in it. You push this lever, and of course this thing to spin around, it had these two little things on. You probably remember these when you were a kid, right, growing up. It had these two little round rings on it, which would bang on the side of the bell. So it's more complicated, And so you see that with different machines. Some machines are very, very simple. Some machines are very, very complicated. So similarly, the body, it's just a really complex machine. That's all it is. And yet, because of the illusion of material energy, the Maya, she creates this illusion, we identify with it. We think it is us. There's a really interesting example you can see. Remember, it was probably before some of your time, but does anyone have any experience with film? Like motion pictures, they used to call them? Interesting why they use the word motion pictures, right? Because if you look at a roll of 35mm film that they used to use in the movies, nowadays it's all digital, they just plug a hard drive in and that should be film. But it used to be, it was a roll of 35mm film, and it would have either 50 or 60 frames, I think it was 50 or 60 frames a second, right? But if you take and look at each one of those frames, it's just a still picture. And this is where cartoons came about. This fellow Walt Disney, actually, he's the guy who created cartoons. What he did is he drew a stick figure, and you can do it. We did it when we were kids on the corner of the book. You drew a stick figure with legs, and you make it look, like different positions each time, and you flick through the corners of the book. You ever done that?
Yeah.
And it looks like it's walking.
Yeah.
But it's not. That's the illusion. And material nature is exactly the same. We think this body is us, but it's just illusory. Because actually, it's, and that's the seamless nature, and it's like with film. It's so well done, it's so professionally done, it looks real. And we get completely absorbed and we think this is reality. But in the end, you see the credits fall over. And so, in the same way with the body, because of the influence of material nature, the influence of the modes of material nature, the way Maya applies the modes of material nature, the influences by the modes of material nature, we become convinced that this is me, and all the everything associated with this body is mine. This house is mine. This family is mine. This car is mine. But actually, how much of it do we actually own? When it comes to the time to leave the body, how much can you take with you?
Nothing.
I had a really interesting auntie, her name was Agnes. She was quite a character. She was very wealthy. And she used to tell us when we, I was like a little child, and remember she was saying, if I can't take it with me, I'm not going to go. And she was convinced that was going to happen. But guess what? Auntie Agnes died, and everything she had stayed behind. Because it's not hers, she can't, it's just hers to look after for some time. And so this is what Krishna's helping us to understand in this 9th chapter, is the wonder of devotional service and the wonder of the knowledge of devotional service. And so in the first 3 verses, basically, he's introducing us through the chapter. And this is a very, very important chapter because it's telling us about unalloyed bhakti. The other chapters don't tell us about unalloyed bhakti. And if you know the Bhagavad Gita very well, there's how many chapters in the Bhagavad Gita? 18. And it has how many sections? 3. The first 6, the middle 6, and the final 6. The essence of the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita is in the middle 6. This is the most important. Right? And we see right at the beginning of the 7th chapter, what does Krishna say? He's now hear from me, O son of Prita, how by practices yoga, in full consciousness of me, you can overcome become free from doubt. He's explaining that to Arjuna, but by hear, he says, touch Chinu, hear. He's talking about the hearing process. This is the first thing is we have to hear. Because if we don't hear, we'll never understand. And so right at the beginning he's saying, please hear. Yeah? And now he's saying, he's talking about the most confidential knowledge, the purest knowledge, and how it's directly realizable and is joyfully performed. Okay, so this is the 2nd verse, this Rajavijja, Rajadvayam, Pavitram, Idam, Uttamam. Utta, Ut means, what does Ut mean? Highest, topmost, yeah? And then we see in the purport, Prabhupada talks about devotional service is superior to speculative knowledge and ritual. You'll see in many temples in India, for instance, they perform very, very elaborate rituals, which is nice, and it helps to engage the follower. But higher than that is the practice of bhakti. Higher than that is to place Krishna at the center of everything, and we do all our activities for His pleasure. And you'll see later on in this chapter, He says, Yad Karoshi, Yad Asnasi, Yad Jehoshi Dadashi, Yad Tapashashi Kuntaya, Tad Kurusha Malapana. He says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer a good way, whatever austerities you perform, you do that as Son Kuti, as an offering to me. So basically saying, whatever, Yad Karoshi, anything you do it for Krishna. This is bhakti, because the whole point is you're doing the same activity, just like, you know, I'm assuming this is your son here?
No.
No? Someone's son?
Yeah.
Your son, okay. So if you raise him for the pleasure of Krishna, that's bhakti. If you raise him because you're the father, that's not bhakti. You see the difference? It's the same thing, just a different purpose. So whatever it is you do, like you're going to school now, you do it for the pleasure of Krishna, that's bhakti. And it's purifying your heart. But if you do it so you become a great scholar or something, like, you know, I can be the best mathematician, that's just material. So you don't have, and then Prabhupada would make this point time and time again, you don't have to change what you're doing, you just have to change the purpose for why you do it. And he would often say, like, if you look at everything in this material world, it's just a big zero. Jumbo jets, your skyscraper buildings, your beautiful civilization here in Singapore, it's just a big zero. Because it has no point, it has no focus. But if you take the one, and if we say, you know, you take all these zeros together, and if you have 1,000,000 zeros, what does it equal? Zero. What if you have 1,000,000,000 zeros? What if that a trillion or a quadrillion? Still zero. If you take the one, and who's the one? Krishna. You put it in front of those zeros, what do you have? You have something very significant. And this is the point of what Krishna's getting at here. Is to use it, everything for Krishna's pleasure. And the thing is also, is bhakti is, as I'm saying here, bhakti is very practical. It's not theoretical. It's very, very practical. Everything you do, you're at home, you're cooking for your family, you're cleaning the house for your family, you're at work, you know, whatever. You just do it for Krishna. And you'll be surprised how purifying that is for you, how much it changes your consciousness. You do it for Krishna's pleasure. When you're interacting with your husband or your wife or your children, you do it for Krishna. And so, would you yell at your mother, your wife for Krishna? Probably not. Would you yell at your husband for Krishna? Probably not. No, you'd have kind, harmonious relationships. So if we can do these things for Krishna's pleasure, then you'll find this is very uplifting, very purifying. And this is what Krishna is directing Arjuna to do. Because see, what's Krishna trying to get Arjuna to do? Ultimately, surrender. But how does that surrender manifest? Because he's a Kshatriya. By fighting. His ultimate purpose is to surrender. He says, you abandon all these resolutions, surrender unto me. That's the point he says, surrender. But how he surrenders is by fighting. How someone else surrenders will be different. It depends on what your nature is and what your dharma is. So Arjuna's dharma is a Kshatriya, so his dharma is to fight. That's not our dharma. It's like, you don't go out and start killing people out doing Krishna. We don't. And as I was saying, bhakti is very, very practical. There's no point just sitting in the chair and philosophizing about the practice of bhakti. No, we do it. It's called the practice of bhakti. We do it. So Krishna is making this point here that everything you do it for him. That's bhakti. Then we see in the next 7 verses. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So simultaneously, Krishna is describing his immanence, but also his transcendence. You understand these words? I had to look up immanence. I didn't know what it meant. It means that he's pervading and sustaining the universe. And that's the point he's making here. That the whole universe, Maya Tatam Idam Sarvam Jagara Vyakta, This Jagat, the universe, avyakta, unmanifested. Murtina means form. By me in my unmanifested form, I'm pervading the entire universe. All beings in me, I'm not in them. So he's transcendental to this. Everything exists. We need to understand this, how everything is existing by Krishna's energy, on Krishna's energy. You know, his, as it says in the Upanishads, this Parasya Shakti Vividaya Shruti. He has multifarious energies, so many different energies Krishna has. And everything we see is coming about because of his energies. So this is a really interesting concept here, is how, even though it's all coming from him, he's still aloof. He's not affected by it. We are the opposite. We're very much affected by it. And as long as we identify with it, as I said before, as long as we identify with it, we become more and more affected. And this is part of the practice of bhakti, is to learn how not to be affected by it. And then he goes on to explain, he gives an interesting analogy. He says, just like like today, there's a nice breeze blowing today. And where's it blowing? Where's it sit or reside? Where does the wind reside? Huh?
Sky.
Atmosphere.
Yeah? So it resides in the sky, like you see, what we see above us called sky. You know? And so the wind resides there. And so in the same way, all created beings rest in him. So essentially, if there is no sky, how does the wind exist? If there is no Krishna, how do we exist? It's just like there's an interesting verse later on in the Gita where he explains, I think it's in the 14th chapter, where it says, Sukrimani Ganadiva, that all things rest on me, just like pearls rest on the thread. So what's the interesting thing about pearls and the thread? When you see a necklace, you know, with pearls and stuff, what's the interesting thing about it?
Can't see the thread.
You can't see the thread. If you take the thread out, what happens?
Everything falls
It falls apart. Tick, 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 tick. It's like anyone who's ever been in Pajari or anything, when the thread breaks from the breeze, they all fall and go tick, 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 tick. So it's the same for us. Without Krishna, how does this creation exist? You don't see him. You know, and it's the same as like, you know, the pearls and the thread. Like if a child sees the pearls, or someone who's ignorant sees the pearls, they don't realize there's a thread there. So someone who's ignorant is the same. When they look at the creation, they don't realize that the thread is God, and that the whole creation exists because of God. And so this is a really nice understanding to develop. And as he explains in other verses in the Gita, the whole creation works under his supervision. This divine energy mind consisting of three modes of material nature. It's his energy. It's very difficult to overcome, but it's actually his energy that's working under his direction. And then later on he'll go on to explain. This is Maya Jakshena Prakriti, Suyate Sashvashanam, Hetunandana Kumbhya, Jagat Vipali Prakriti. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction or something. So he's saying again, it's one of my energies. It's got multifarious energies. So many things are going on by his energy. And it's working under his direction. It's just like, you know, Prabhupada would often, it's kind of interesting, he used the example of Mr. Ford all the time, and then Mr. Ford became his disciple. Just by Prabhupada saying his name, he wound up becoming his disciple. But he's saying that in Mr. Ford's factory, it's not that Mr. Ford's going around telling everyone how to do things, but it's by his agency, by his energy, everything is going on. They make the cars, they make all the parts, things like that, put them all together, make a car. By his energy. You understand how the energy works? Not necessarily he's doing it, but he's set everything in motion. It's just like the Mayapur Academy, we were talking about the school in Mayapur. I run that school, but I'm not there all the time. So by my energy, you know, but I've trained the devotees how to run, I've trained them what we need to do, and you know, I'm monthly in touch with them. And so it's going on by my effort, but I'm not involved directly. I have my agents involved, so you can see how things work. And I'm sure you all have similar experiences in your workplace and home environment. And it's saying, he also says in the 10th verse, it says, under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. He's not directly involved. It's the material nature who's doing it, but it's his energy that's acting under his direction. And then it says that the fools, they don't understand. Avijjanati mamudha. They don't understand. And the thing that's even more confusing for them is like, you know, Krishna manifests in some gigantic form and look very powerful and destructive and things. Oh my God, you know, they start to get really concerned. But when Krishna comes as a human being or in a human form, they're completely bewildered. Well, they say, oh, he's just some immoral guy, he's just some powerful personality, some magician, he's stealing other people's wives. They don't understand. They just don't understand who Krishna is. And this is the biggest challenge in Kali Yuga, is people don't really understand God. And this is why it's so important that we study Bhagavad Gita, we study Srimad Bhagavatam. Because by studying these transcendental literatures, the mind can become freed from this mundane perception. And also, obviously, by chanting Hare Krishna, because mantra means this mana indicates mind, and tra is triatim, means to, just like we have, you've heard this word kshatriya? So kshatriya literally means to protect from harm. So the triate, so the triate is harm, so this is, triate means to free from. So the chat means to harm, and triate means to liberate, so kshatriya means one who protects from harm. So mantra means to free the mind. Manatrayate means to free the mind. So through the process of bhakti, the mind becomes freed from these material concepts. And we see how in the third section how Krishna is differentiating between recognition and misrecognition. And like we see here in the 11th verse, he's talking about how they see Krishna coming in a human form and he looks the same as them. Just like we see Duryodhana, yeah? You're all familiar with Mahabharata, I'm sure. Yeah? And then when the Pandavas had been in exile for 13 years, they came back to Hastinapur. Actually, no, they weren't staying in Hastinapur, they were staying in Virat, whatever, I can't remember what Virat's kingdom was called. And Yudhisthira called a war council, and he wanted to figure out what to do. And he didn't want to fight, not with his relatives, because he knew it would bring about the destruction of the Kshatriya dynasties. He didn't want that. So he sent Krishna to Hastinapur to try to reason with the Kauravas. But the interesting thing is you can only reason with a reasonable person. That's what the word reasonable means. You can reason with them. But Duryodhana was not a reasonable person. And when Krishna went there, he tried to avert the war, and he said, but you have to give them some land, because they're Kshatriyas, they need to rule. At least, he said, give them some land, give them a province or something, or if you can't do that, at least give them 7 villages, so they can rule the villages. And what did Duryodhana say? I will not give them sufficient land into which you can drive the point of a pin. Is that a reasonable person? Not very much reasonable. And then, at that point, he had arranged Shakuni and others through their intrigues. They thought, well, without Krishna, they're defeated because they all, they're completely sold out to Krishna. So he devised a plan to kidnap Krishna. And so what they'd done is they'd had a pit made in the palace, and somehow there was a trapdoor or something there. And so just when Krishna was about, after this point where Duryodhana had said this to Krishna, and Krishna became a little bit annoyed with him. And Krishna was telling him, it's like, you better be careful, because I could easily destroy the whole kingdom. But if you're angry with the Pandavas, you're finished. And Duryodhana didn't accept this, so you had the trapdoor open, they tried to capture Krishna. And then Krishna, he manifested what's called a partial universal form. It wasn't a full universal form. It was only a partial universal form. And showing, Bhishma was just like awestruck. Dronacharya was awestruck. Kripacharya, awestruck. Vidura, just completely awestruck. Wow, Krishna, you're so amazing. But, you know, I mean, Bhishma was a good man, very, very elevated soul. Even, what's his name? Dhritarashtra, he could see it. By Krishna's mercy, he could, even though he was blind, Krishna allowed him to see that universal form. But Duryodhana, when he saw it, what was his response? Oh, it's just some magician, it's just some trick. He dismissed the whole thing as just some trick. And so this is the point between 11 and 15. It's basically explaining the difference between devotees and non-devotees. How devotees will accept the spiritual nature of Krishna, whereas non-devotees, because they're foolish, abhijanati, they have no intelligence. Mambuddha, they're fools. And they derive. But the great souls, when the subsequent verses, Mahatmanastamam Kata, David Prakriti Mashvata. The Mahatmas, they see me, they understand. This is me, they accept me. This is the verse. 13th verse. It says, Mahatmanastamam Kata, David Prakriti Mashvata, Vajatyanam Yasmanasukya. It's saying here how those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. If someone is deluded, they're under the protection of the material nature. But that's no protection at all. Because the material nature, you're constantly being harassed by the modes of nature. But when one actually accepts Krishna and takes shelter of Krishna, then they're protected by the divine nature. It's just like, you're all familiar with this term ashram, yeah? So the idea is we make our home an ashram. So what does ashram mean? It means shelter. Yeah? The word actually means shelter, like an umbrella. Yeah? So when we're home in our ashram, we feel peaceful, we feel satisfied. When we go outside and there's all the tooting of the cars and, it's different. The mature world is very different. It's just like, I was just in Mayapur for 2 months, and it's very, very, when you're in the temple compound, it's very nice. Kirtans going on, classes going on, with darshan with the years, nice devotee association, Krishna Prasad. But then when you go out on the road and there's all the buses going past and the what they call the little electric scooter things and tooting their horns, you kind of just like, oh my God, you feel like you're under attack. So that's the thing. It's like you're sheltered in that environment. You're sheltered from material nature. And similarly, when we surrender to Krishna, He protects us. And he says this to Arjuna. He says, you give up all these different ideas you have of religion. Surrender to me. I will deliver from you all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So this is the point of surrender. When we surrender to Krishna, we lose fear. Is that a bad thing? We devoid of fear? Because we're all fearful of something. And once you get to 70 or 80, what are you fearful of? You're fearful of going to die. You're fearful of getting old, you're fearful of getting sick, getting hurt. You'll be careful, I drive the car, otherwise I'll crash into somebody or someone will crash into me. But like yesterday, we were in the train station, I pulled out a muesli bar, I ate a muesli bar, and the warned me, said, well, you shouldn't eat it, you'll get a fine. So you'll find, there's an interesting purport in the 9th canto, 10th chapter, where Prabhupada is saying that good citizenship cannot be legislated. Yeah? And that's what they try to do here. I'm not criticizing, I'm just pointing it out. They try to make rules to force everyone to be a good citizen. But as soon as no one's watching, what happens? Are they still good citizens? If there's no government, they just go back to their normal behavior. The only way to make good citizenships is through education. And that's what we're trying to do in ISKCON. We're trying to educate people how to be good citizens. So he talks about the Mahatma and how the Mahatma perpetually worships Krishna with devotion. Very, very important. Then we go on to the verses 16 through to 19 and identifies Krishna as the supreme object of all worship. And he talks about how he's the ritual, the sacrifice, the offering, etc. Very, very nice verses. And then the next one, and this is a point that Prabhupada makes here, that all Vedic processes ultimately point to Krishna. That's the whole point of the Vedic culture, is to bring one. And what does Krishna say in the 15th chapter? He says, that I am the compiler of the Vedanta, I am the knower of the Veda, and indeed I am to be known by the Veda. So the whole Veda means knowledge. The whole point of knowledge is to know Krishna. That's the only point of knowledge. All these things we learn in the material world is just material knowledge. But real knowledge means spiritual knowledge. It means knowledge of the self, which ultimately brings us to the point of knowing God. That's what knowledge is for. Of course, you can use knowledge to earn a living and things like that in the material world, but that's temporary. That's what they call relative knowledge. Knowledge of Krishna is absolute knowledge. Relative means, it's just like, you know, when I started school, I had one concept about the universe, or the atom, or so many different things. Then when we get to high school, they had a different concept. When I got to university, they had a different concept, and they've probably got a different concept now. Okay? Relative knowledge, because it changes. You know, something is relative, it means right here and now, this is what it is, but in a month's time it could be different. But absolute knowledge means it never changes. That's spiritual knowledge, it never changes. The knowledge of Krishna is always God. It's not a job he has and he's going to get the sack and have to get someone else to be God. No, he's always God. He always was God, always will be God. And we've always been his servants, we are his servants, we always will be his servants. It doesn't change. The nature of the self never changes. The nature of God never changes. So then, after that, he talks about different types of worship, about how the demigod worship is between demigods, ancestor worship between the ancestors, and Krishna's devotees. He says, but those who worship me, they will live with me. Very, very important verse there. What's that? Yanti deva vrta devam pitrin yanti pujita bhutani yanti yanti bhutani yanti bhuteja yachina bhuta. He's explaining how those who worship the demigods, yanti deva vrta devam, they go to the demigods. Those who worship the pittas, they go to the planet of the pittas. Those who worship the forefathers, they go to them. Those who worship me, they'll live with me. So Krishna is explaining quite clearly. It's just like, if I'm going to the airport tomorrow night, if I get on the wrong plane, I won't be going to Melbourne, we'll go somewhere else. Not all paths will take you to the same place. And then the Krishna's, there is a I guess in India it's fairly well known, Mayavadi philosophy says Yatamat Tatapa. You familiar with that? Yatamat Tatapa. All paths, same destination. But how is that? It doesn't work at the airport. You get on one plane, it'll take you here, you get another plane, it'll take you there. No, and so here we see that Krishna's defeating that. He's saying, whoever you worship, that's where you'll go. But if you want to go to my abode, you worship me. And so he's defeating this impersonalistic philosophy. And then we see towards the end of the chapter, getting close to the end of the chapter, very, very nice verses. Ananyas chityo nyatomam ye jana paripashate tesham nitya vikram yovichema ahamyaham. Very, very beautiful verses. For those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. There's a really interesting story about a person called Arjuna Acharya. Does anyone know this story? So he was quite a pundit, and he read this verse in the Gita, and he couldn't figure out how it is that he carries what they lack, he preserves what they have. So he scratched out the word in the Bhagavad Gita, and he changed it to I can't remember what he changed it to. I've forgotten now. But just something that was more acceptable to him, and then he went off to have his bath, and his wife was cooking lunch and stuff like that. And then so meanwhile, while he's down in his bath, there's these two beautiful young boys who came. And they brought some produce, bhoga, for his wife, for Arjuna Acharya's meal. And they said, they're basically telling his wife, don't tell him we came here because we get very angry. And his wife was really surprised and she said, what do you mean when you get very angry? And he said, he got angry before, look what he did to my back. And one of them turned around and showed his back, and there's all these scratch marks on his back. And she was mortified. She said, "My God, he did that to you? I can't believe this." And so then they quickly ran away. And then when Ajunacharya came back, his wife was like on his case, like heavy, big time. And then he couldn't understand, and he was wondering where she got all the food from, the blogger from. And so she explained what had happened. She said, these two beautiful young boys came, and they told me that you had sent them with a blogger, but also that one of them told me that you had scratched his back, you put the scratch marks on his back. And he was like, couldn't understand it. He said, what did they look like? And then she described them. He said, well, one was a little bit blackish blue, and one was whitish. And he realized then that this was actually Krishna and Balaram who come. And that the scratch marks on, I mean, I'm cutting pieces out because it's quite a lengthy story. And the scratch marks on the blue one's back were actually the lines he scratched out in the Bhagavad Gita. And from this exchange, he understood how it is that Krishna always preserves what we have and carries what we lack. And it's a very, I mean, if I had time to tell the whole story, it's a very, very nice story. And so, but this is the power of bhakti. You know, even if there's something lacking in our practice, because of the sincerity of heart, there's this phrase, Bhava Grahi Janardana. How Krishna understands the intention of his word. So even if something is missing in our practice, Krishna doesn't see that. Just like another beautiful story that's there in the Bhagavatam is when Putana, she disguised herself as a beautiful young woman, and she smeared her breast with poison, and she was trying to kill Krishna with this poison on her breast, and she offered her breast to Krishna, and Krishna sucked on her breast. So what did Krishna see? Did he see the fact that she was trying to kill him? Or did she see that she was offering her breast as a mother? He saw that side, he saw the positive side. And Prabhupada would often make the point that Krishna never sees the dark side, he only sees the bright side. So even in our devotional service, if there is some lacking, Krishna doesn't see that. He just sees the fact that we're trying to serve him. So we should always feel very encouraged in our service that Krishna's always accepting the bright side of your service, even if there is some lacking there. Don't worry about that. Just keep trying to sincerely serve and please Krishna, and he accepts that. And then he goes on to say a few verses later, he says, Patram Pushpam Param Toyam, Yome Bhakta Priyajati, Taraham Bhakta Ashtami Prayata. If one offers me with love and devotion, it's very important because this word bhakti is mentioned twice in this verse. Taraham Bhakta Ashtami, I accept. I'll accept whatever you offer with love and devotion. And Krishna, he's not asking for very, very complicated or expensive things. He says, you offer me love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or even a glass of water. And who can't get these things? This is how willing Krishna is to make himself readily available to us. And then he goes on to explain it, because there's those three verses together. He says, and then he says, Shulva Shulva Vareva Moksha Kambana, Sanyasho Vimokoma. That in this way we become free from this Asuva, Rayareva, so the fruits of auspicious and inauspicious activities become free from them. And with our mind fixed on Krishna, with this principle of renunciation, renunciation means that we're giving up all our attachments to these material things, so our activities, the charity we do, whatever we do, we're offering love, devotion, leaf, flower, fruit, water, we're giving up all the attachment to the outcome, and just simply trying to please him. Then we become freed from all the results of auspicious and inauspicious works. And with our mind fixed on him, the principle of renunciation, we're liberated and become a Krishna. A very, very wonderful description in this chapter. And the thing is that one of the points I'm trying to get here is how practical bhakti is for our everyday life, because you can do everything for Krishna. You don't have to change anything. Just do it for Krishna. and Krishna responds. Krishna reciprocates, and he reciprocates fully. Then, if we look in the few verses after that, we see how he says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. So Krishna's neutral. He's equal to all. And he said, but whoever in service and devotion is a friend is in me, and I also in him. So he reciprocates. He's neutral, but he reciprocates. And then you see he goes on to explain that even, he said, in the next verse, he said, even if one commits the most abominable action when he's engaged in devotional service, he's considered saintly because he's properly situated in determination. So even someone who commits a sin, and I'm sure we've all done something wrong in our lives, but if we're fixed in devotional service, then Krishna sees that. And as long as we don't do this stuff again and again, then Krishna is willing to keep all those things. And then he goes on to say, those who take shelter of me, be they of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, Sudras, can attain the supreme destination. So there's no restriction on who can become God conscious. It doesn't matter what body you have, where you're born, what color your skin is. This is one of the challenges when Prabhupada faced when he was trying to spread Krishna consciousness. Is like there's a class of people who believe that only people born in Brahmin families, for instance, can take to the practice of bhakti, or only people born in India can practice devotional service. But Srila Prabhupada understood a much broader understanding that actually anyone could take to Krishna service. Why? Because we're all servants of Krishna. That's our constitutional nature. So all we're doing is not something, like sometimes we feel that it's something foreign or something new, but it's actually our nature, it's who we are. We're just trying to wake up to that. It's just like, has anyone ever had a nightmare? And something horrible is happening in the dream? And how do you stop that horrible thing happening? You wake up. Yeah? So that's what's happening. We're in this nightmare right now. And Krishna's trying to get us to wake up. Jeev Jago, Gora Chandra Bole. Otan Nidra Jalamaya, Pisachira Bole. We're lying in the lap of the rich Maya and thinking, well, this is active. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is calling out to us, wake up. Chant the name of Gauranga. You become happy. But we're so caught up in our illusion. Yeah? And so this is, and the nature of bhakti, as I'm saying, it transcends all social, intellectual, spiritual, whatever designation you have. It transcends all of these things. It doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter who you are, if your body's disfigured, if you can't, whatever problem you have in life, bhakti transcends everything, because bhakti brings the self into contact with Krishna. That's the point of bhakti. It brings us in contact with Krishna. Yeah? And then when we come into contact with Krishna, we wake into our original spiritual nature. And even things like social hierarchy, because you see, especially you go in North India, Vrindavan side, the social hierarchy is very, very prominent there. One's born in a Brahmin family, one's born in a Vaishya family, whatever. And they don't like to mix. And I've seen this in Vrindavan sometimes when they invite different people to the start. They have to be very careful who they sit next to who, because if you sit the wrong person next to somebody else, they become deeply offended because they're caught up in social hierarchy. But that's no impediment to the practice of bhakti. And then in the end of the chapter, the very last verse, verse 34, and it's interesting because there's almost an identical verse in chapter 18. It says, Man manava bhamat bhakto madhyaji namaskaru mamai vaishayukhyaivam atmanam mat parayana. Engage your mind in always thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisance to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So this is the conclusion of unalloyed devotee, saying this is unalloyed bhakti. It means there's nothing else going on for you other than service of Krishna. Engage your mind in always thinking of Krishna. Become his devotee. Offer obeisance to him and worship him. Being completely absorbed in him, you'll surely go to him. And so this is the actual conclusion of this chapter, and also the ultimate conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, is that by practicing devotional service in this way, we will return to Krishna's abode. It's a wonderful process, and Srila Prabhupada has made it very, very easy for us, this process of Krishna consciousness. Any questions on? I hopefully you understood what I said. Yeah. A little bit hard of hearing.
You mentioned raise the children for the pleasure of Krishna. For the pleasure
Raise the children for the pleasure of the Krishna. Raise
Yeah,
the
yeah.
children.
So
How to?
means how to raise for pleasure of Krishna means ask them to do like read Bhagavad Gita, do chanting or something like that, or because
But-
daily routine is they'll go to school, come back,
Yeah.
do their homework, they play and
Yeah, yeah.
sleep.
But the thing is, like I've seen this happen time and time again. The same thing happened to me. Right? My father tried to force me to become a Christian. Do you think it worked? I rejected it because it was forced. Especially when you get into your teen years, you tend to become quite rebellious in your teen years. Especially when your parents try to force you to be something you don't want to be. The best way, and like Prabhupada defines it, is just like, you know, when they're up to the age of 4 or 5, something like that, you kind of basically let them do whatever they want to do. Just protect them from sticking their hands in the fire and stuff like that. But basically let them do what they want to do. They have a happy life, you know. From about 4 to 15, be firm with them. Loving, but firm. You have to give them parameters, you have to give them morals and things like that. When they're 15, you become their friend. Now my wife has done a similar thing with her son. You know? He's our son. You know, he's adopted me as his father, but anyway. And what we see is that for him, when he's got any major decisions in life, he asks us. He wants to know, how should I do this? You know? He regularly comes to our home, he brings his mum up practically every day because she's actively developed a relationship with him as a friend, not wagging the finger at him and saying, you should do this, and you have to do this, and you have to. I can tell you an interesting story. I know a devotee, she's quite well known in Islam. She's a singer. And she was a Gurukul. And what used to happen was anytime they did something wrong, they were punished. Right? You know what the punishment was? Chant 1 round of japa. So what kind of subliminal message is that sending?
That is punishment.
The japa is punishment. The most blissful thing you can do in your life is punishment. So do you think she's able to chant japa? You see, you have to kind of work with the psychology of you know, like, obviously you've got your desired outcome. That's fine. But you're not the controller. Krishna's the controller. If you try to control the child, inevitably they'll rebel. Best thing you can do is set a good example. And be there when they need you. And don't judge them. That's the worst thing you can do to your kids, judge them. If they feel judged by you, not loved by you, that will be very difficult for them. I mean, you think of any time in your life you felt judged, how did you feel? Feel good? No. So, and that's when it comes from people you don't like. Yeah? What about when it comes from the most important role models in your life? Your father and your mother, you feel judged by them. How do you feel? Completely shattered. Yeah? So the point is we have to learn to love our children. And they need to feel, and help them to feel loved, not that they're being judged by you. And that if they mess up, it's okay, I'm here for you. And that's what we do with our son. It's like, you messes up, we're here for you, what do you need? By being Krishna conscious yourself, and by being that loving parent that everyone aspires for, then they're going to say, my dad's a really cool guy, I want to be like him. Yeah? That's how you raise the children of Krishna consciousness. Be a good devotee and inspire them to become a good devotee also. And always remember that they're not your children, they're Krishna's part and parcel. And the same as you've got the super soul sitting in your heart, Krishna sitting in your heart, Krishna's also sitting in their heart, witnessing everything. It's a very different concept from what we're taught at school when we're growing up. My son, my daughter, my wife, I'll do whatever I want. I'm the boss. Actually, no, you're not, with a servant. So all these material concepts we get taught are just so messed up. They've got nothing to do with what's going on here. Because it's all about trying to be the control and being the enjoyer. But actually, as Krishna says at the end of this, the 5th chapter, is Bhaktaram Yakadavasam Sabadok Maheshwaram Surinam Sabhutanam Yatma Mamshantam. He says, that person understands that I am the Bhakta, the enjoyer. Bhaktaram Yakadavasam, enjoying all sacrifice, all austerities. Sarvalok Maheshwaram, I'm the proprietor of all the planets, all the devas, everything. I'm the proprietor. And Surinam Sabhut, and I'm the well-wishing friend of all the beings. Such a person knows peace. No one else knows peace. Because everyone else is trying to be the controller, the enjoyer, the proprietor, and the friend. How can they know peace? They don't understand who they are. Is that okay? Being a parent is a big job. Great responsibility. And actually, Rishabh Dev mentions this in the 5th canto. Your main purpose is to deliver your son from the cycle of birth and death. So first, in order to do that, you have to deliver yourself from the cycle of birth and death. That's the point of being a father, a mother, a teacher, a demigod, a leader of a country. Any of these roles, a guru. It's like being a guru is not such a big thing. It's the same as being a father. It's the same role. The function is to deliver the dependent from the cycle of birth and death. Mother is the same as being a guru. They have this whole conversation going on right now about, Siksha gurus and this thing and that thing. But to take on the role of a mother is the same as being a guru. Because you have to deliver your dependence from the cycle of birth and death. Big job. May Krishna bless you. Anything else? Yeah.
He's actually my father.
Is he doing a good job?
Yes, honestly.
Right, there you go. You've got a vote of confidence there.
If I feel love, if I want to chant, but I don't want to be forced.
Yeah.
How do I do it?
What was the second part you said? If you feel love and you want to...
I feel love,
Yeah.
but I inside I feel like I want to chant. But
You want...
I want to chant.
Chant.
Chant,
I
yeah.
want to chant, but
Yeah.
he forces me, like, chant your hands, chant your hands.
Yeah.
But when he forces me, I don't know how. I just feel like I don't want to chant.
Yeah.
See, there you go. You have the testimony of what I'm saying. I'll give you an experience I had when I was a child. Right? In Australia, we have this game called Australian Rules Football. You've probably seen it on the television, or some of you ever seen television. Right? And I used to play competitively, but I also used to play with my friends. Okay. When I played competitively, I didn't perform as well as when I did with my. When I played with my friends, I used to be really, really good at it. Why? Huh?
You're enjoying it.
No. I was reading something interesting today, okay? This is the 9th chapter of the Bhagavatam. And the 9th chapter of the Bhagavatam is when Prahlad Maharaj is offering prayers to Narasimha. All the Devatas, because Narasimha was really, really angry. Right? And all the Devatas are praying to Narasimha, and he's not calming down, And Brahma's really worried because he'll destroy the whole universe and this thing and that. He says, Prahlad, go pacify the Lord. And so we see that Prahlad Maharaj, he started off prayers. And then he was saying how he wasn't fearful of the Lord. And then Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport, he was talking about how you see sometimes when the elephants, when they get into a big flood, they get washed away by the flood because of the strength of the current. But there's little fishes in the water that are swimming against the current. Why? How can they do it? They're so small. And the mighty elephant. A practical example I had, I remember when years ago, I was in Canada. And I was going to Buffalo in the USA to catch a plane somewhere. And we went and visited Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls are pretty impressive, the amount of water that's coming over. And anyway, we went in this boat called the Maid of the Mist, because a lot of mist, they give you these raincoats and stuff. And the boat went probably maybe from here to where Mataji's sitting over there on the chair, away from the falls. If we had gone closer, we would have completely smashed. And the water's so powerful, it's falling from several hundred feet down. Yet I noticed there was these birds right at the base of the falls, diving into the water there and catching fish. How can they do that? They're just a tiny little bird. We're in this big, strong boat. There's even fish that are even smaller. How can they do that?
Practice.
Not practice. I mean, if I practiced, I wouldn't get the chance to practice. I'd get killed. Because they've taken shelter. Yeah? So you see, when you have shelter, you're able to, and that's the point I'm saying when I was playing sport, when I have this feeling of being protected by my friends, when I have this friendly relationship with them, I'm able to shine. I'm able to excel because I feel safe. But if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel protected, you tend to go inward. Yeah? So that's what we have to do for each other, is to create environments where we feel protected, not where we feel pushed and driven. It has to come from you. It has to come from within your heart. This relationship with Krishna is between you and Krishna, between you and Krishna. Yeah? It has to come from within. So when you're dealing with others, create an environment where they feel nurtured. This is our business, is to nurture everyone in the development of Krishna consciousness, not to force people. Because there's a saying, actually, you've heard of Vaisheshika Prabhu?
Yes.
Really, have you heard of him? Wonderful Vaishnava. I encourage you to go online and look up his lectures. He's really, really encouraging to read. He says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can lead a man to knowledge, but you can't make him think. So you can't force anyone to do anything, because usually what happens is that it's just out of principle that they'll say, no, I don't want to do it. But even in their heart, they want to do it, So the idea is to try to create an environment where the person feels sheltered and nurtured, so they want to, and they feel they feel this environment where they can actually make mistakes, where it's okay to make mistakes. And I mean, how old are you?
14.
14. You're going to make a lot of mistakes in your life. And the people around you are going to make a lot of mistakes in life. But that's okay. My grandfather told me the man who never makes mistakes never learns anything. So embrace making mistakes, but learn from your mistakes. And that's the point that Krishna is saying here in that verse, that okay, you might make mistakes, you might commit abominable activities, but keep going with devotional service and give up the mistakes. Vishnu Shabari Thakur makes the same point. It's like, okay, you will have times in devotional service where you do the wrong thing, but learn from that and don't do it again. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful. But try to chant as much as you can. And as I was explaining to Prabhuji today, it's good if you can make a steady commitment. Whatever it is you can do, it's got to come from you. You've got to make this commitment. And who are you making the commitment for? For Krishna, for his pleasure. So you can become his pure and loyal devotee. So if you can chant 1 round a day, 5 rounds a day, or 16 rounds a day, whatever it is that works for you. Because no one else is going to do it for you. It's just like you see, like the Buddhists, they have these things called the prayer flags and the prayer wheels, because they don't have the time to chant the prayers themselves. They have these wheels they spin, and they have this flag to flap in the wind, and the idea is they're chanting the prayers. But you don't get the benefit from that. You have to chant the name to get the benefit. Like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used a really interesting analogy. You like honey? What does it taste like?
Sweet.
Huh?
Sweet.
Sweet, but also like full, isn't it? It's a very full taste, and very, But have you ever tried licking the outside of the jar? You think you get the taste of honey from licking the jar? No, you have to open the jar and you have to do it. So if you want to experience Krishna consciousness, you have to do it. And only you can do it. Like, I can taste honey, right, have some honey in my mouth and be sucking on it, and try to describe it to you, but do you think you will taste the honey? No, I'm experiencing, oh, very nice, oh, yummy, it's like this, but for you it's all very theoretical. It only becomes real when you do it. And so that's what Krishna, any experience you have in this life, it only becomes real when you do it. And so Krishna consciousness is very much like that. It becomes real when you actually do it. And your relationship with Krishna becomes real when you engage in the practice of bhakti. Okay? Keep trying. Anything else?
Anyone else? Any other questions?
So I'm vegetarian. I don't buy it.
Maharaj, my question is more like, ever since I've been part of Krishna consciousness, so this question about balancing career, so I understand that being in the material plane, you can be looking at this as modes of passion, right? But only when you look at it with passion, you are able to excel generally. Like before Krishna consciousness, that was the general outlook. But then now, as I really want to get into Krishna consciousness and follow this path, then sometimes I will go on the other side and try to think that if I'm not doing that right, I'm not going to grow in that, right?
Yeah.
But that's also needed for sustenance in
Yeah.
the material world. So how do you strike that balance?
But this to me, this is the point of that verse, Yad Karoshi Yadashnasi. Well, what's your career? What do you do?
I'm an architect.
An architect, right? So why do you do that?
Why?
Apart from making money, like what's your outcome there?
It's always been the joy in creation. So that's the point
But
exactly.
you know who's the supreme architect?
Yeah,
Who?
Krishna.
Brahma,
Brahma, okay.
right? He was the architect of this universe, but what did he do it for? Who did he do it for? He did it for Krishna.
Krishna.
So when you what sort of